Are you ready to listen to my dad Joe and Uncle Justin talk about sports? Now on with the show.
The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop, which have been serving the greater West Lawn area delicious food for over 70 years.
So get ready! I mean, get ready! Are you ready for some football?
You are listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. A weekly podcast about sports since 2011. With a focus on football. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and here with me, as always, is my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Also, glad to see, despite your hat and sweatshirt, we have made it further into the show without fighting than they did in the game last night. But
You're right. Amazing. I hope everyone watched that game. I was a little disappointed at first reading some of the articles today about the game. Actually, it was lead up to the game too, and there was an article mentioning that there was 1.5 million viewers, and I was like, oh man, that's not a great number. That was not the game. That was the game between U.S. and Finland.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, oh, those numbers aren't out yet. Because I'm hoping it's a big number, because even our buddy Paul Roberts mentioned, when's the last time anyone on X was talking about hockey? Because I guess everyone in Paul's feed was talking about it too.
Right.
And he had put out a poll earlier, they're like, what are you most excited about tonight? And it was Alabama, Auburn college basketball, which I don't care about at all, because one, it's not March yet. I can't get into college basketball. Two, it's Alabama, Auburn, and while there may be two of the best teams in the country this year, Alabama and Auburn basketball do not move the needle for me.
Well, SEC is a basketball conference, so
right, they're not a football conference anymore.
Right.
So, but yeah, he was talking about Alabama, Auburn. I was like, I know those teams have been good the last few years, and it's not the same as it was in the 2000s and early 2010s with the Blue Bloods all being there. You know, Kentucky, Arizona, Duke, the Big Ten schools, you know, Michigan State, like they've all been up and down, back and forth. Kentucky, like Alabama, Auburn being like the pinnacle of college basketball does not do anything for me whatsoever. So I immediately looked at the next two things. Well, USA, Canada, Four Nations was on there, and then NBA Slam Dunk or skills competition. Yeah. And I was like, if any of you are watching anything but Canada, USA ice hockey, you don't know what you're missing. Right. And literally immediately, 3 fights in the first 9 seconds. And people are like, yeah, it's hockey. International competition, you don't get fighting. That's generally like, this doesn't happen.
No.
But this has been building for nearly a decade because of politics around the NHL did not allow Olympic competitors in 2018. So the best of the best were not there in Pyeongchang. Then COVID hit and messed up a lot of stuff, including Summer Olympics for sure, delayed a year. But then even the Winter Olympics were still under massive amount of protocols, and the NHL was like, we can't risk it. So they were going to send them in 2022, but they didn't. So again, didn't get the best of the best facing off against one another. So the last time it happened was the 2016 World Cup. And things were building and palpable, and of course there's outside influence happening now, and then things inside the rink that were making things boil over. And the Kachuk brothers and JT Miller apparently decided before the game, they had a 3-person group chat saying, we're stirring things up immediately. And apparently Matthew Kachuk and Canadian player, I think it's Hagel, they knew that this was happening before the game even started.
Right.
And then Matthew's brother Brady was like, I'm not letting you one up me. I'm getting involved.
I love we've got the real Bash Brothers. You know,
I know. I sent you that
Yes,
shirt from the great hockey. I have my USA ice hockey banner. It's been hanging up there for years. And it was awesome. I'm messaging the group and I'm texting you. And I'm just like, there were 3 fights in the first 9 seconds. USA versus Canada. That doesn't happen. I actually clipped an article from The Athletic today, sent it to you. There were documented 5 fights. I think, was this across all of, or just USA Canada? I can't even remember.
I assumed it was USA, like international ones.
Well, so
it could be all though.
I'd have to revisit it, but there were only 5 fights ever. In however we're clarifying, I'm not sure if it's just with Team USA, between USA and Canada, or just in all international hockey competition. 5 fights ever. There were 3 fights last night in the first 9 seconds. So fantastic, and it was really nice seeing non-hockey people being like this. Like, hockey doesn't get a lot of attention and is the least liked or at least present of all the 4 major American sports, but when hockey is doing it right, hockey can go toe-to-toe with all of them.
Right. And you see flashes of that when you get to the Olympics and you get to the international, people get behind it. You know, people rally behind it, especially when it's the best of the best. You know, I think back to TJ Oshie.
Yeah, 11 years ago.
Right. Just
like
going,
to the day, I think it was.
Going nuts, you know. And then, it was because my buddy posted his memory on Facebook was like a picture of, I think it was like Herb Brooks from the movie saying, again.
Yeah.
And
So when Matthew Tkachuk's fight was finishing, I tweeted something. I was like, "Oh, we already got a fight." And then Brady steps up a fight, and I quote tweeted myself, and I said, "I put the Herb Brooks thing up again." I was like,
again.
And then when we got our third fight with JT Miller, who was, man, he took a guy that was 6 inches taller than him, 20 pounds bigger. That was quite the tower that he went after. But then I responded to myself, and I put the Captain America, the Marvel, I can do this all day.
Yes.
Then it felt kind of sucky when the Canadian national team scored first.
Right.
And that's when I messaged you, because I have been reading so much leading up to this game about how the United States has caught Team Canada by and large, toe-to-toe, especially has overtaken them in goaltending for sure. And that's, like, I understood that. But talking about how this American team is as good or better than this Canadian team, I'm like, they have Connor McDavid, who is probably the best hockey player on the planet.
Yep.
With Nathan McKinnon, who leads the NHL in points, I believe.
Yep.
Still have Sidney Crosby, who has never lost a game as captain of the Canadian national team up until yesterday. And that's just 3 people. Then you go down the list of all the people that are on there, and like I like the Tkachuk brothers.
Right.
Jake Gensel, who I hated because it was with Pittsburgh when he came in as a rookie, and Dylan Larkin. I always will hate the Red Wings, but the American names just don't stand out to me as much. And I said to you, I don't follow hockey as closely as I did in the 90s and 2000s, especially when I knew everything about every team and every player. Right now, I'm Flyers only. I've been Flyers only probably since, honestly, the Flyers were last in the Stanley Cup in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
For the better part of the last 15 years, I've been pretty much just Flyers only. And Flyers only has been tough for the last...
It's been brutal.
Probably, most of the last decade since they made the Stanley Cup. They had a year or two afterwards where they made the playoffs. They kind of teased us in the COVID year. Like, that was a year that... what could have been. The Flyers were the best team in the NHL, or were the hottest team in the NHL when the season was paused. Right. And they picked it up in the bubble. They ended up winning the number 1 seed and eventually lost to the Islanders. I think it was like 6 games. Yeah. And ever since then, things have been downhill. I'm happy about the direction of the team right now, but we're still at least another season away, not counting this year.
Right.
Like, we got to finish this year and probably go through all next year until the Flyers are legitimate contenders. So hockey has been tough to focus on all around. So it's tough for me to wrap my head around that Team USA is as good or better than Team Canada. If they beat them again on Thursday, then I'll understand it. But right now, I'm very happy to have won that game last night, 3-1. Fantastic. I hope Matthew Tkachuk is okay and is ready to go on Thursday. I doubt he'll play tomorrow against Sweden. That game pretty much means nothing for the United States, other than if they want to play Canada again, they need to win.
Right.
Because if Sweden beats the U.S., I think Canada might not make the final. I think the U.S. might replay.
Yeah.
I don't know how it would work with the points then.
Right.
But I believe the U.S. actually controls Canada's destiny. I think the U.S. has to win for Canada to make the final. So it's interesting to see what will happen. But I'm glad to see people talking about hockey. Four Nations was a fantastic choice for this All-Star break instead of doing an All-Star game.
It feels so genuine as opposed to a gimmick that's trying to stir up things that might work for a little bit. But, like, honestly, it's hard to imagine that this Four Nations thing won't lead to the players especially, and that's the key. If you get the players to buy in, you're going to get other people to buy in, to them not really be pushing for this to happen again. You know, like
Yeah, I know that people were calling out all the NFL and NBA about you need to fix your all-star events because it's not working. The skills competition in the NBA was a joke. You had players cheating to try to win, and they were called out for it. Then the dunk contest, I guess, was terrible except for McClung, who isn't even on an NBA roster.
Right, and he's won it 3 years in a row.
Right.
Like, and he is amazing. He's dunking and bringing dunks that make you think of old-time dunk contests. Problem is...
Right, you're thinking Vince Carter. We're talking like late 90s.
When he does it the first time, it's like, oh, what a great story.
Right.
And he does it the second time, it's like, okay.
He followed it up.
And then he does it again, and you're like, okay, this is great, but the guy's not even in the NBA. Let's either just get the best dunkers in the world.
Right, yeah.
Some of which aren't in the NBA.
Right, sure.
Or let's, like, try and get guys from the NBA into it. But
yeah, so they have a problem. NBA has a problem overall about their regular season doesn't matter. No. You have their players sit out, don't do anything, take days off. I mean, our 76ers are a joke this year. Like we talked about, I think, did we talk about that off the air? Or was that 2 weeks ago? We talked about how like Joel Embiid went from like savior of Philadelphia with people, behind him wanting him to win MVP to now it's like a laughing stock.
Right.
He's almost become like the Anthony Rendon of the NBA, who Anthony will now also not play much, if at all, this season in baseball. So it's just weird. And then in huge contrast to what the NHL is putting on right now.
Right.
I know I want Russia and Czechia to be there as well, but there are things outside of our control that are not allowing that to happen. And if they don't get their act together very soon, they're not going to have the opportunity in the Olympics next year either.
Right.
Like literally, like probably in the next month that has to be done. So there's a lot of things they got to clean up if they want to compete internationally with the rest of us. So, so that was the first thing I wanted to talk about quickly before we dive into the Eagles Super Bowl championship. Other thing I just want to mention: Penn State wrestling. Dual champs, Big Ten regular season champs again. Machine. I think they've won it now, 5 years in a row, the dual title.
Yep.
And something Justin and I don't know that we put it out publicly, but Justin and I are going to the NCAA wrestling championships. And not only are we going to the wrestling championships, we are going to championship night, where maybe Penn State will have already clinched the team title. I don't know. If they haven't, though, there's an opportunity to do it in front of us.
And they could be going for the scoring record.
And we could see the scoring record and hopefully 4+ Penn State wrestlers, maybe 5 or 6 Penn State wrestlers wrestling for individual championships. So Justin and I are doing that at the end of March.
Yeah.
So it's coming up quickly. We're just about, 5 weeks away, I think.
Yeah.
So, that was a wild trying to buy those tickets a few months ago. But it worked out, and that's going to be a fun time. We've been talking about it for, it feels like almost a decade now.
Yeah.
I think the first time I watched them was in 2017, and we immediately were like, we should go. And then there were some that came close or nearby, but COVID obviously got in the way, and other things came up. But when they went back to Philadelphia, I think we were pretty convinced that it needed to happen, and it's going to happen. So that'll be fun. But congrats again to Penn State Wrestling for their dominance so far, and hopefully that continues over the next 5 weeks. All right, so let's get into it now. Super Bowl LIX recap here. Eagles coming out on top, dominant fashion. I do not have a new intro. Sorry, Justin, we've abandoned that.
That's okay.
But the Eagles got that treatment. I can't believe that was 7 years ago.
I know, that's wild.
We were taking care of that. All right, so your dad says
Yes.
Penn State Wrestling now holds the second longest dual meet streak, having won number 70 versus
Yeah.
Illinois today. So, yeah, just dominance from the Penn State wrestlers, and we'll all get to hopefully watch that continue here in 5 weeks.
Yes.
But, yeah, so you already got the gear. You got the gear the night of. You
Yep.
and Austin went to Dick's Sporting Goods.
Said clock hit 0. I said get in the
Get
car.
in the car. So it wasn't. I've got a lot to say about the game itself, not really Eagles specific, but we had discussed leading up to it how interested were people in this game, because we were told all the time no one likes Philadelphia sports teams and everyone's tired of the Chiefs. There's all that weird, which we talked about already, like the reffing and like like all that stuff, and
which died off rather quickly, that discussion.
right, yeah, exactly. Which we said that it would and should, and here we are. And then the game itself wasn't that great. The Eagles kind of took control almost immediately, it felt like, which I'm sure made you breathe a sigh of relief.
I couldn't have asked for more. Like,
you
honestly,
really couldn't.
could not have asked for more.
I mean, we've said I'd rather my team lose in a blowout and like know that it's over early
it
than in the way it happened 2 years ago.
24-0 at half.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking this is the worst, because when they lose this, like, because in my mind, I'm like, Tom Brady is going to have to call the Patrick Mahomes comeback. I'm like, I'm never going to hear the end of this.
doomsday scenario.
I will not be able to hear any NFL news. I won't
The
be ready
Eagles
for any
blew a
NFL news
24
until
point
next
lead.
year. And then, it's all you're going to hear. I'm like, no, I can't. I was like, I would rather be down. Not actually, but like in my mind, like if it's playing out where I thought they could still lose this game, I'd rather be down 24-0 and get blown out than to give up a comeback.
Well,
like, of that magnitude.
we
Not if
said-
you're like 7 or 10 or something like that. But
25 plus with 8 minutes
minutes.
to play
Right.
in the game. You were at 24-0 at halftime.
know.
And I'm sure, and I know everyone in your mind, we're never not going to, they're going to score.
Right.
You're not shutting them out.
no.
But then the Eagles went up 31-0, didn't they? Before the
Yeah.
Chiefs scored?
34, I think.
34-0?
34-0.
So,
And Chiefs scored with on the second to last play of the third quarter.
So the game wasn't close.
No.
It wasn't a good game in terms of like it was close and competitive.
Right.
The Eagles dominated from the start.
Right.
In every facet. The Chiefs even got, I mean, the game wasn't as close. What was the final? 40-22?
Yeah.
18-point margin. Didn't end up being one of the biggest blowouts in history because the Chiefs ended up getting some garbage touchdowns at the end of the game where it didn't really matter. It was 40-6, I believe.
Yeah. And people were basically like, that's essentially what the game was. The game
Right,
was
yes.
the
40
game
to
felt
6.
like 40-6.
40-22, even though that is a big win as well. That's 3 possessions. It felt more like 40-6. The Eagles dominated, unlike I've seen a team dominate recently. I guess maybe the most recent event like that I can think of is maybe Broncos getting destroyed by the Seahawks in 2013 2013 season. Last
See, I
time it
didn't-
felt like completely out of reach.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean that Buccaneers Chiefs one was kind of iffy at points, but I think Eagles Chiefs was worse.
Oh, yeah.
than Bucks Chiefs. But yeah, it was an interesting experience for sure. I still don't really know what outcome I wanted. In the end, I would have been happy either way. I'm super happy though to see Saquon and Jahan win, and apparently Tariq Castro Fields as well.
Yep.
So have those Penn Staters win, and like everything that comes out about Saquon is just like overwhelmingly positive. Every interaction people have with him, and so it feels so good to see him win. And you know, I was happy for you and the friends to be able to take that all in, especially now that all the kids are older and can maybe appreciate it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Than 7 years ago, Austin was probably a little too young to completely wrap his head around what was going on.
Like he was like, okay.
Right,
you know.
yeah. The Eagles won. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now they're of that age group where, they're going to be like the Boston kids, like Eagles got 2 Super Bowls in the first, 10 years of their lives
Right.
or whatever, 11 years of their
They'll
lives.
never know. They'll
Yeah.
never know what it was like.
So it's wild to think about that. It's too bad the Phillies didn't throw one in there a couple years ago, so we'd be talking about
time.
that.
Still
No,
time.
yeah, I said, what if they already had one though? Like you had
yes,
3 Super Bowl appearances, 2 wins. The Phillies go to the World Series twice and win one, and then they're ready to go, and the Eagles are still set up. Hopefully, the Flyers are building up. Sixers are disastrous.
Kids could have been the next Bill Simmons.
Right, exactly. Sure, yeah, why not? But fantastic job by the Eagles all the way down. Look, I do not like Nick Sirianni. And that's not really like a coaching thing. He is not a guy that I
You're not a big
enjoy.
coach turn around and scream at the fans guy.
He does not do it for me. And I know he's been getting heat. Obviously, he proved that he can do it.
Right.
He got the job done. So kudos to him and his staff for sure. Kellen Moore, I know up and down at parts throughout the season or his career. Fantastic job in the Super Bowl. Vic Fangio, I was very hopeful that last year with the Dolphins, he would be the answer to some of the issues and get things moving. I 100% put the blame on that organization that has been pissing me off now for most of my life. The players are soft, and they've been called out for being basically telling Vic Fangio that he was too hard or too difficult. Well, guess what? He just took a team to another Super Bowl. He's already won one in the past. So maybe take a look in the mirror. Right. You overpaid, worthless pieces of crap that can't do anything right in Miami. Like, figure it out. It's not difficult. Because Vic Fangio just helped them win the Super Bowl.
Took what was and somebody phrased it like this. So he came in to one of the bottom third, and the way the season ended, one of the worst defenses of last year.
Yeah, with the way things ended.
Right. So
sure.
if you take it in context of the last third of the year being how you finished, really a bottom performing team from a defensive standpoint. They immediately say, yeah, we're not bringing back our best player, arguably best player, and they trade him to the Jets.
Right. Hassan Reddick.
Right.
Well, that didn't work out.
Right.
Honestly, signing his replacement didn't work out for the Eagles. It's about the only thing that didn't work out for the Eagles.
Correct.
Though.
And then, being able to take those pieces and just build it and really get it to work, and man, just be a dominant force. And somebody said, I know it's there's a little bit of syntax here, but no blitzes in the Super Bowl.
No plays with true 5+ man rush.
Right.
Always 4 or less.
Right. And to be able to have Mahomes just look lost. Now, again,
one of the worst games he's ever played.
Right. And a lot of that was on the protection. They can't protect him. They couldn't protect him.
Which is interesting because 2 years ago, they were against the Eagles, praised for not giving up a sack in the Super Bowl. They had T-shirts made.
Yeah.
And this is it's not the same line. I understand that.
It's also they didn't play on a slip and slide this time. see now I almost texted you. I almost texted you this week to be like, oh man, this show may be the closest to Philly sports fan Justin that you get to see, because we've hashed that out. I we did that after that game, and I'm like, look, both teams played on the same surface. Yes, I felt like it.
Right, but when it's the focal point of one team and not the other team, when you change the identity,
right,
it's the same thing as where that was a form of the elements getting involved, but weather elements.
Right.
When you talk about, I heard Puka Nacua was on the Ross Tucker football podcast talking about the game against the Eagles in the snow.
Yeah.
Saying he couldn't come out of his breaks.
Right.
It's a neutralizing thing. But he immediately said, he's like, both teams are dealing with it. Not just me.
Right, exactly.
Both teams are going through that.
And so when you look at some of those things, it was one of those, but yeah, because I saw a thing that was those guys, the Eagles D-line should wear 0 blitzes.
I saw that, yeah.
And again,
or how many 0 blitzes.
And this week I was for all the pettiness. I was. But they just played really well. The defense played really well.
They played
the
phenomenal.
Offensive line played really well. And I know people were like, "Oh, well, they shut down Saquon." Yes, but they
sold out.
They
had
to do
Saquon.
everything to shut down Saquon, and minus one play where I don't mind the idea of throwing it up to AJ Brown. Like that, not a bad
One bad
play.
decision.
He rushes it because he's going to get hit, and he doesn't get enough on it, and he didn't give AJ a shot at it.
That is when I thought things were going to start to unravel.
Right, because you're like, all right, you give
Because it
the
was
Chiefs
10-0 at that point.
you give the Chiefs an inch, and what's going to happen?
They find their way through.
Right.
But it didn't happen. And
No.
why? Because of the pass rush. Because
Right.
in the next couple plays, the pass rush, it wasn't a sack.
Right.
It was a slight pressure because they literally, I don't remember if it was Sweat.
I think it was
pushes
Sweat.
Tooney, who's subbing in at left
Right.
tackle because they don't have an answer, into Mahomes as he's throwing, and that's the one that
Right.
Bond jumps
Yep.
in front of and picks off.
And so, but other than that play, Hurts did an immaculate job diagnosing what Spagnuolo was throwing at him.
Right.
Did a spectacular job.
Right, Spags was trying to limit Saquon's effectiveness and daring Hurts and the passing game to win the game, to
Right.
beat them, and that's what Jalen Hurts and the offense was able
Right.
to do.
Right.
So kudos to him. You and I talk, I think, via text about has Hurts outplayed Mahomes twice. That you can make that debate
Right,
for the
again.
first game,
Right.
But I think it pops into people's heads that fumble.
Yeah. Me too. I struggle with that. I have it's separate to me of saying Jalen Hurts played in a way in that first game that you can see he's good enough to win a Super Bowl. To say he outplayed Mahomes, I don't know. He outplayed him. He outplayed him.
He
on
ran
Sunday.
laps around him in
Right.
Super Bowl 59.
And now, again, this is off of the Eagles, but still me here for all the petty takes. People being like, well, you can put that GOAT debate to bed because Mahomes, Brady never looked like that. And I'm like, yeah, and Brady is a known cheater for the first 3 Super Bowls. They knew what plays were coming because they were stealing signals and videotaping practices.
Look,
so listen, yes, Brady is the best quarterback. I'm not saying that, but to say when you take something so tangible, it'd be like, well, the defenses in the Super Bowl never had Brady so shook. Well, that's because Brady knew what was coming. And the team got punished for it because it was a known thing. Man, if your uncle's listening, oh gosh.
Happy belated birthday, Uncle Rich, by the way. He's celebrating yesterday.
Yes. But the takes of this would make him the best ever were probably a little premature, and the takes that now he can't be the best ever are also premature.
Well, so yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about.
The three-peat would have been a huge thing,
One,
in his column.
I think it was ludicrous that we were talking about Mahomes in the same breath as Brady.
Right.
To begin
he's just
with,
not there yet.
Just because he's got 3 Super Bowls, yeah, he's on a trajectory that he could get it done.
And he's at the same pace as Brady.
Right, and this doesn't change that.
Right.
But to think that someone's going to be able to match him, I feel like you got to let it linger because
this is a crazy thing. So Brady started 3 for 2 in the Super Bowls, and then had a 10-year drought of not going.
Right. Well, that's I want to,
and I was like, I almost don't remember that. It doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it happened. I know that, but it just doesn't feel that way. You know,
I get back because Mahomes, is he 28 or 29?
I don't know.
He's not 30 yet. I want to see where Mahomes is when he's 34.
Right.
Through season 33, where is he at in comparison to Brady?
Mahomes may not want to play till he's 44.
Right, that's the other thing.
He may not
so
want
to. So I didn't like that.
And he will have made
with.
over $1 billion by then. And, so he doesn't have to.
And I never heard Mahomes ever compare himself to Brady, at least not in public.
Everybody else.
It's everyone. It's the sports media. That's what happened. But I agree with you also. The people being like, well, that debate is over. You could never have that debate again. I was like, he's still playing. He didn't retire. He's still playing. People want to say he's overrated.
It's not going to happen. But what if he won 4 in a row now?
Well, I said, I texted you guys immediately. I was like, thanks a lot. Now you ended this three-peat in embarrassing fashion. Next year, it'll be random 2 teams that people are like, wow, where did they come from? Like, because we got Bengals, Rams the last time this happened after Bucks, Chiefs. But then 2 years from now, the Chiefs are going to go on and win 3 in a row. And it's all going to be because of what happened with the Eagles.
Andy Reid's going to find a couple like stalwarts at left tackle and right tackle, and they're going to rebuild their line, and they're going to draft more guys. So when they trade draft picks with the Bills this year,
well, Andy Reid's not retiring. They still have Patrick Mahomes. I don't know what's going on with Travis Kelce, but outside of the playoffs, he wasn't his normal self this year.
Right.
He's wearing down and moving on. That's fine. They're still dangerous. They still have a great defense. Yes, they need to make productive offseason moves in the draft and free agency, but they've been doing that. They have done that. They are very much like that early Patriots dynasty from 02 to 07. They were drafting well then. They were making good free agent acquisitions. That is where the Chiefs are right now. Will that change? Maybe. I don't know what's going to happen, but they're still very much one of the teams to beat in the AFC at this moment.
Absolutely.
Right there with the Bills and Ravens.
Absolutely. And all these people saying, oh, I don't know that they'll make the playoffs next year and
That's
stuff. I'm
ridiculous.
like, that's fine.
Unless Patrick Mahomes blows out his knee.
Right.
Like we saw it happen to Brady the year after the
Right.
great 07 run that ended with that first Giants Super Bowl.
Yeah, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. It's not like just because you don't win every year.
Right.
They'll be fine.
They've made, 7 straight AFC championships?
Right. Who are you taking over them in the AFC? I know there's contenders.
Bills or Ravens.
There's
Those are the
contenders,
only options.
but like
And guess
both
what?
of those teams have proven over and over again that they'll find a way to lose.
Chiefs beat both of them last year, and this year the Chiefs beat the Bills again.
Right.
So, they are the new Patriots,
Right.
For better or worse.
Now,
because for however long, it was like, I'm not choosing against the Patriots until you prove it, till you show me that it's going to be different.
Couple things here. Again, just I have forgotten how much fun and with the parade being on Friday, essentially the week. Like, so it started Sunday with the Super Bowl, and then the entire week has just been great. Like, I've been soaking up every last bit of Eagles championship coverage I can get. And, I saw one of the things of like, I think it was like the St. Browns were doing their podcast, like just trying to talk about like, well, who do you think is going to be the opening night game? Like the Eagles. And they said,
I'm hoping
in their mind, they're like, it's got in their mind. And I would agree with this. When you look at Eagles home games next year, Lions or Commanders, they're like, they think it should be one of those two. I think it should be Commanders, but I don't think it will be because you can guarantee first night you're going to get big ratings anyway.
You don't need it to be a divisional game.
You don't need it to be a divisional game because the Eagles Commanders is going to get a big rating.
But Lions Eagles is going to get a big one no matter night.
It is too.
And
like that's fine.
I want it to be Lions Eagles because I want you and Jameson to go.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. But
you,
then they were
Austin,
talking.
Todd, and Jameson.
They're like, we'd love to run it with our healthy defense. See who really, And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, to me that screams.
Wait, who said that? The Commanders or the Lions?
Some of the St. Browns on the Lions. With a healthy defense, we'll see. And I'm just like, to me, you know what that reeks of the Saints when they lost to the Vikings the last time the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and they're like, well, if it weren't for the Minnesota Miracle, like we would have beaten the Eagles in. Well, yeah, but you lost the game to get there. Like, what do you want? The Commanders whooped you on your field. Yeah. Like, everybody was like, nobody, Detroit, it's going to be so loud. And the Commanders went in there and dominated them. And then the Eagles dominated the Commanders. So, like, yeah, Detroit had a ton of injuries. They absolutely did. But that brings me to my next point. Did you see the thing? I might have sent it to you. That 21 out of 22 opening day starters for the Eagles started like the Super Bowl.
Hey, ATs matter.
Unbelievable.
Medical staff, all that, all the stuff, nutrition, strength,
one of the trainers
strength
is
and conditioning.
Duquesne guy because Duquesne was posting stuff about him.
Hey, and look, a little bit of luck.
Yeah,
that we see each year. The healthiest teams are better. Right. So, and if it's because of prevention or recovery, all kudos to medical science and those individuals that are part of that.
Well, and to like get Brandon Graham back, and I know like he wasn't like a huge, wasn't the exact same as like when he stripped Brady, but like having him back, like there's some intangible things there, you know, some of the experience he brings, the leadership he brings. But man, it was so much fun watching them do their thing and dominate and keep the pedal down. Like, how many times have we seen the Chiefs? Well,
yeah, will their way back in
Mahomes
it.
has won, like, every time he's gone down 10 points, like in a postseason game. He's
Well, I
won.
texted you. I was like, they got you right where they want you.
I know. It's just like, oh my gosh. But like the thing where they're like, you know, it's 27. I think it was when it was 27, and they're like, all right, it might have been 24 still, and they stop them on 4th down, and it's like, all right, well, they're going to hand off to Saquon here, and they bomb it over the top. You know, like,
yeah, that was when I knew it was different.
That was
and I
dagger.
knew it was over.
Right.
I was like,
that was dagger
we're
right
done
there.
here.
Yeah.
You can see yourself out. So congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. Hope everyone's soaking it up. Howie Roseman, just masterclass. This one of the greatest offseason organizationally, the way he and his staff handled from scouting and contracts, knowing when to fold them on a player and move on.
Well,
just
and playing the game
ridiculous.
I know people, and I watch these clips of some of the Cowboys podcasts where they kind of complain, but they do it in a lot of ways of like complaining and saying like, this is what makes them different, is how the Eagles kick so much of the salary responsibility down the road, but they keep doing it, and they keep doing it because the system allows them to just keep doing it. And so, the Eagles have like 8 players who are on contracts of $50 million or more, something like that. But they just like spread it out, and they just keep kicking it down. Like, but you have to have an owner that does that, because I learned this a few years ago, separate from the Eagles, is that like when the guaranteed money is something that the ownership or the team has to put in escrow.
Right.
So when someone like the Browns give $240 million to Deshaun Watson, Jimmy Haslam has to write a $240 million check essentially and put it in escrow.
There,
Right. Which I get, like that's a fair thing. But like some owners aren't willing to do it, like the Bengals, like they have 2, and may not get a 3rd, even though they probably should. You know, like you got to keep Chase there.
You have to,
but
yeah.
I don't know that they're going to.
Well, I can't keep chasing Higgins. They're never going to do that.
And again, we've talked about this before. Mark Cuban was not a perfect owner for the Mavs. However, he had this quote, and he's like, some owners can't stand to lose, and some owners can't stand to lose money. You know, like, and I understand it's a business for these guys. For most of them, it's their toy business. You know, like it's not like
not even their main.
Right. But there's some who will do anything to win, and I feel like Jeff Lurie has become one of those. Like, you know, he took the Eagles ownership before him was abysmal, and he's turned it into an organization where, again, and yes, Sirianni can definitely and rightfully rub people the wrong way. Like, he's not everyone's thing. And if I wasn't an Eagles fan and they didn't win the Super Bowl, like, I can understand that, like, completely. But I look at, like, how many of the recent guys that have since retired or moved, like, still just find themselves so connected to this organization. And to me, that says a lot, not just about, like, Sirianni, but, like, the organization as a general. Like, you look at, like, guys like Fletcher Cox and Chris Long and, like, just some of these guys that have since moved on. And for, like, Chris Long, he won a Super Bowl somewhere else. He won
New England.
right. And he openly talks about it. He's like, I don't know what it is. He's like, it's just different. It just feels this connection. You know, obviously there's Kelsey, but that's a unique situation in and of itself. His whole career was there, you know, like, but you get all these guys who are just like kind of stick around. Well, like James Bradbury this year, you know, basically gets released, but stays on essentially to be like an advisor / coach kind of role, like out of a DB. You don't see that out of DBs.
No.
Like, you know, and it's just like having that quote unquote, the culture building, you know, like it's interesting. It's just an interesting thing. And hopefully they can sustain this success. man, but enjoy the ride because it's so much fun when they hit gold like this year.
Yeah, I mean, and starts at the top, trickles on down. Howie Roseman signed the two biggest and best free agents on offense and defense, in Saquon Barkley and Zach Bond.
Yeah.
Barkley's around now for a couple more years, but Bond is a runner-up or in the top 3 defensive player of the year.
Right. Well, and they got him essentially for nothing because he was a special teams guy for the Saints.
Well, I said to you, the Saints let, over the last handful of years, Alex Anzalone and Zach Bond go.
And Malcolm Jenkins and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And, like, somebody said, like, what the Saints have done to help the Eagles win Super Bowls is insane.
Right. So, and then also his scouting department and draft group brought in Cooper DeJean in the second round, which people like. We were watching the draft. Well, this was not that night, but that weekend, I was like, "How is he still available?"
Right. Well, and people said the same thing about Quinyon Mitchell,
and then they got Quinyon Mitchell in the first round,
right?
Which we were like, "That's a great pick." Like, the Eagles needed DB help. Well, they go back and get DeJean, and now you got 2 of them, and they both were monstrous additions to that defense this year,
right? And I said it to you. Howie has taken what was a weakness, like evaluating and drafting talent was his biggest, I say weakness. It wasn't always bad, but like consistently was rough. And he has turned it into a strength over the last handful of years.
Right.
Like I don't have it here, but that thing of like,
I'm trying to pull it
their
up right
top
now.
3 draft picks over the last 3 or 4 years.
I'm trying to see if I can find
their
it.
contributions.
Here it is.
It's just insane.
So last 4 years, 2021 through 2024 drafts. 2021, it was Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, and Milton Williams. All started in the Super Bowl. Milton Williams had a fantastic game along that defensive line.
Yes.
Then in 2022, it was Jordan Davis, Cam Jurgens, and Nakobe Dean. Now Dean's injured.
Right, but was playing the
was
best
playing
he
really
had.
well,
Like, he was unbelievable.
Jordan Davis, not as strong this
but,
year.
But
still in the rotation.
Came along the second half of this year better than he did. And I think he might have had a sack or he had a big stop in the game or a big pressure or something in the game. Like, he came along the second half of this year better than he had before.
Then 2023, Jalen Carter, a monster. Nolan Smith, monster off the edge. Then Tyler Steen, who's kind of been the 6-man swing guy, but has been called into action with the retirement of Kelsey.
And has done fairly
and then
well.
Injuries to Dickerson or Jurgens or Becton. Also, we didn't even talk about him signing Mekhi Becton, who I was so enamored with him coming out of, I believe, Louisville when he was drafted by the Jets in the top 10 or 12 picks in the first round years ago. And then, of course, the Jets screwed him up, as the Jets do with everyone. The Eagles, a reclamation project. I said to you when they signed him, I was like, dude's a player. I don't know what went wrong with the Jets, but you're going to like him. And
I love the thing that was like, this guy is a guard.
Right.
He's like 6'8",
365. 6'8", 365, the Eagles are using him at guard. Worked out pretty well, though. So Howie Roseman in that front office, just incredible job all around. And just think, like, he was demoted what was it, 6 years ago? When did that all go down?
Chip Kelly.
Oh, was it? Okay, so it was longer ago than that.
He
I was
banished
thinking
him because, remember, in Kelsey's speech, he had been banished to the other part of the building.
I was thinking it was after the first Super Bowl win.
And what's crazy is he stuck with the organization. Like, a lot of times guys
I
would
couldn't
leave.
believe.
A lot of times guys would leave at that.
Well, look, he wasn't having a great run around that time, and there was issues back and forth in the early 2010s.
Far cry from drafting Danny Watkins.
The firefighter.
That's unfair to Danny Watkins.
It is.
Like, he did not deserve to be a first-round pick. Like, he didn't deserve that heat.
Yeah, and he's not the one that caused that.
No.
But
and it's not like he was awful. It just didn't pan out. But like, that's one, like, yeah.
So
and it's been fun.
Here we are now. The Eagles are tied with my Dolphins for most Super Bowls. 1, 2. None of that has happened in my lifetime.
I did bring up to you, I think I said it to you, if this would have happened when I was in college,
Oh,
that the Eagles have as many Super Bowls in my lifetime as Steelers have in the lifetime of my group
Right.
of friends in Pittsburgh. Some people
Insufferable.
would have heard about it.
well, I think about it, like, yeah, I love that the Dolphins have 2 Super Bowls, but I'm like, they literally haven't been to a Super Bowl since I've been a fan.
Right.
I think technically they barely meet of me being alive because I think they played in the 85 Super Bowl, which I would have been like 6 weeks old or something like that. With Dan Marino losing to the 49ers.
Yeah.
Pain. It's pain. That's all there is. Pain. But just domination from start to finish. Kudos to the Eagles for making a statement and making it known they were easily the best team this year. I know it got off, or they 2-2 and after the first month of the season.
Yep.
Kind of an embarrassing loss to the Falcons and the Buccaneers.
Yeah. And
both those were bad losses.
Only lost once after that.
And it was to the Commanders after Hurts got injured in a shootout. And the Commanders had to come back to do it, but that was it. So ridiculous season. So were they 17-3 then? Did they play 20? 17 regular season? Yeah, 17 regular season. No,
they
21.
Played 4.
They played 21 because they weren't the 1 seed. So
they're
18-3.
18-3 and finished on a 17-1 run.
Hey, you know what else was 17-1? Oh, yes.
Good times.
Still no undefeated teams though. One and only. My dad was texting just that he always hates not just us or anyone, but just comparing eras of sports because it's kind of ridiculous to do, and to think about. I know people get mad about the Dolphins like celebrating when the last undefeated team works. Like they're playing more games now. Like, well, at the playoffs, the Dolphins were playing about that many games, and so the Patriots went undefeated in the regular season. You can hang your hat on that if you want.
Right.
Didn't end with the Lombardi Trophy, so I don't know that anyone really cares. But I will always, I will run with that till the day I die. Once all the guys from that 72 team are gone, it doesn't matter. As long as it still exists,
Joey's going to be popping
I will pop the champagne for them. So that's all I got. That's all I have to hold on to right now. But hopefully the Phillies will change that this year.
Dude, I said, hey, maybe I was speaking it into existence. I said, we've got a heck of a run that we could start here with Eagles winning in the Super Bowl. Let's see. You mentioned it, Penn State National Championship in wrestling in a few weeks. Let's see, the Phillies do it in late October, early November.
Yeah, I don't want this to be a redux of the 07 to 11 Phillies because we didn't get the pinnacle. We didn't get the peak like we got in 08. We got the 09 season in 2022.
Sorry. I was misreading. I was like, right now, I'd take it.
I want. We haven't gotten to the peak yet,
Right.
and it's the slow death because I hate that graphic because the Phillies from 08 through 2014 literally went like the step like won World Series, lost NLCS, lost NL Divisional. Didn't make playoffs. Finished in third place. Finished in fourth place. Finished in literally like 7 years. Like this is what a slow death looks like, and that's
the Ryan Sandberg days.
Yeah. So it was just I don't want that to be what is happening here because we got lost World Series, lost NLCS, lost divisional. Like I don't want lost wild card. Like cannot happen this
Let's
year.
just reboot to the top.
Yeah, right. Jump back up. But the Phillies didn't really make any moves in the offseason. People are happy with the trade for the fifth starter, Luzardo.
Yeah, that could be good. And Painter.
And removing Taiwan Walker. I mean, I know he's still there, but like he's not there. It's not happening. We got to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing. Rotation should be good. Still have issues with the bullpen. We'll see what happens.
Well, maybe the non-splashy offseason, they can see hopefully they can get off to a decent start, but see what they've got. Make the trade. Like, make the trade you need to make. And
I just don't want to see Painter or Miller included in that. I don't really want to see Crawford in that either, but, like, you can't keep them all.
Right, and honestly, I'm at the point where you got to win.
You do have to capitalize. So, like, you can't. Holding on to those guys means nothing.
Right. And if you trade them and you win, it was worth it.
Right.
Like, it sounds terrible, but if you trade them and you win, it's worth it.
But both Painter and Miller could be huge parts of the team next year already. So I feel like anyone below them, on the table. Those two guys, probably not. So
When I don't want to be in a spot where we need to, like I'm not trading them for a guy, a bullpen guy,
right,
even
right,
if it's
or
like a good
someone
closer,
on
or like
some age 30 guy on an expiring contract. No, like we're
No.
getting like this is last year. If they were gonna
If
get
I'm trading those, I want somebody that has lots of control.
they're
like,
gonna get Louis Robert last year.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that like I
Yeah,
get you
that's-
throw in Rojas and one of the like Rojas.
Right.
They probably wouldn't also want Crawford then if you're throwing in Rojas, but it would have been tough to swallow if they threw in Miller or Painter in that. But at least you're trying to win now.
right.
So we'll see. We're gonna do a full baseball preview in about probably right around the time we're going to. It probably will be the week before we go to the wrestling championships, the Sunday before the opening day. So that might be the week before we go to wrestling.
It is because opening day is that weekend, like is the week leading up to that.
All right, so we
No,
might be
no,
doing.
no, no, no.
We
It's
might
the
be
next
doing
weekend. It's
it
the next
because we
weekend.
go to wrestling on the 22nd or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
it's
23rd.
that next week is
So
baseball
the
starts.
day after wrestling championships is when we'll do our baseball preview. So hopefully we're talking about a Penn State wrestling national championship, 5 or 6 wrestling individual champions. It would be ridiculous. And then we're previewing MLB. I will put a spoiler, or not a spoiler, but I am not. I am pessimistic. I am pessimistic entering the year because of the way the last 2 years have gone. So last year I predicted the last 2 years I've been pretty spot on with where the Phillies have ended up.
I don't like that.
Win-loss record, not necessarily success in or
Right.
lack thereof in the playoffs. We don't really go into that, but leading up to it, I said high 80s in 2023, like 88 or something like that. I think plus or minus 1 or 2, and then last year I think I nailed it exactly.
You did.
Because Paul Roberts said, "That's a big number, Joe." And then bullseye. Now, playoffs sucked, so I don't really hang my hat much on that because it didn't end with at least
you
an
pulled the
appearance.
Patriots getting an undefeated
Right,
regular season.
right. I nailed the 16-0, couldn't pull the trigger.
Hey, that reminds me, talking about making great calls, my prediction in the summer
Eagles
was
over Chiefs.
Eagles over Chiefs.
I
in the
believe
Super
you
Bowl.
actually said 40-6 was your prediction. Little off because
Oh,
of
man.
No, we don't
Can you
get into
imagine if
scores,
I
but-
said 40-6?
40-6, yeah. No, 40-22 was the final. We did not make predictions, but Justin did, in fact, and my uncle recapped it for us, and we've been over it a few times in the last few months. Justin picked Eagles over Chiefs, so he got that one
Call my
again.
shot.
Almost
Like
perfect.
Saquon and Jalen.
Almost perfect 2 years ago when you had Eagles over Chiefs, I think. And that was the year that Paul was on this show when you weren't here, and I read over your picks, and Paul couldn't believe you picked the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Spoiler, he's going to pick the Eagles in the Super Bowl next year, too.
Eagles over Chiefs.
No, you got to double down. You got to go Eagles over Bills. That's what you got to. You got to go Eagles over Bills.
Let's do it.
No, you know what? Screw it. If you're able to do this, pick Eagles over Dolphins, please. I dare
Okay.
you.
Eagles over Dolphins. There we go.
But then the setup will be Dolphins over Bills in the AFC Championship and Eagles over Cowboys in the
Can you
NFC
imagine?
Championship, right? That would make my head explode. If that was the AFC and NFC Championship games was Dolphins, Bills, and Eagles, Cowboys, I honestly would probably sit down here and just do a podcast for 12 hours. No, I'd be
my gosh.
throwing up. What am I talking about? I would be so nervous.
See, everything's okay because the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
See, we can joke about this because the Eagles just won the Super Bowl. My dad is rage typing to me. I said happy birthday to my uncle. Also happy anniversary to May's Sandwich Shop, born on my uncle's birthday. Not a coincidence. So 78 years of the sandwich shop.
Your grandfather was like, I need to go to work.
And happy birthday to your sister, I believe, right? She
yesterday,
just
yep.
celebrated yesterday
Same
as
day as
well.
Uncle Rich.
Right, yeah, they share a birthday. So, and happy belated Valentine's Day to everyone. You got to celebrate a couple good wrestling matches with your son.
Yeah, he got 2 wins on Friday. That was fun.
And I got to celebrate at Santander with a Wilson boys basketball victory
yeah.
over Reading High in the Berks County Championship. So
Back-to-back.
back-to-back titles and 4 in the last 6 seasons.
That's crazy.
Pretty awesome. So congratulations to Coach Coldren and his staff and our friend Adam Filer. for another great season of Wilson boys basketball. They're not done yet.
Host
but
Cedar Crest. Boys and girls both host Cedar
both
Crest.
host
the
Cedar
next two
Crest
nights.
Monday, Tuesday, girls, then boys. So if you're native to the West Lawn area, come out and check out some more high school hoops before those season ends. But great time at the Santana Arena for the Wilson Boys Basketball Championship. And at halftime of the girls' game, a neighbor and acquaintance, Sheila Wrestler, was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, Berks County Basketball Hall of Fame. So congratulations to her on that accomplishment. I remember growing up watching her play at Wilson. She was part of those dominant girls teams
I think
in the
I
late
told
90s.
you I was still at Columbia. We knew we were moving, but the girls made the district championship, and single A, maybe
Probably.
double A girls were the first game, and then they were followed by the Wilson girls, and we knew we were moving to Wilson, and there was, they had, we were there for the player introductions, and like, wait, they have a center whose last name is Stufflet, like that's perfect,
Who went on to play at Pitt.
Yes.
So, the girls, I believe, won 3 out of 4 county championships and 3 out of 4 district championships when Sheila was there. I used to have a shirt from that era, like late 90s. I want to say it was like 97, 98, like those 2 seasons. And the girls were something like ridiculous, like 48-4 or something like that.
That's wild.
in those 2 years. Just ridiculous how talented those teams were. And you can still watch the current teams the next 2 nights. Probably quite possibly the last home games.
Barring
Depends
some
on how
upsets.
things
Yeah, barring
shake
some
out.
upsets,
Barring
yeah.
upsets in districts or a good run in districts that could let you host a state game, though I think that's rare because of where the other team might be coming from. Although our lacrosse team, didn't they go out to North Allegheny for a game recently, or somewhere out in Pittsburgh? So it's wacky when you get into state playoffs where some of those games are held. But I think that's it. Anything else you wanted to add? Anyone you needed to shout out or mention?
No, not off the top of my head, no.
All right. So best of luck to the Wilson Winter Sports continuing their play here in playoffs. And good luck to Penn State Winter Sports, both men's and women's hockey teams looking good this year. Hopefully they can keep making some noise in either the Big Ten titles or Big Ten tournaments or in the national tournaments. Boys basketball, women's basketball, not doing great. Struggling here a little bit at Penn State. But wrestling, obviously, working their way, hopefully, to another national championship in about a month. And, go Team USA. Beat Sweden tomorrow. Win the 4 Nations on Thursday. Get prepped for next year. We're less than a year away from, I believe, Italy Winter Olympics. So I'll be right back here talking about the best Olympics winter a year from now. And cheering on Team USA, men's and women's hockey teams. I cannot wait for it. I feel like we just did this in 2022. How are we 3 years removed from that?
It's crazy.
And we're less than a year to go. So, but I'm excited. But congratulations to Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champions. Justin and I, we will have a show next week, Justin. It is not this show, though. We are actually kicking off season 11 of the Bulldog Hour with a guest, Wilson alum, Matt Ginter. Played football for
I
me
am pumped about that.
at Wilson West, the first year of Wilson West Middle School, actually. Did not play football in high school, played for you in the pool, water polo and swimmer, but he is actually an endurance athlete, triathlon, right?
Yeah.
Triathlon.
Yep.
So we're going to talk to him. He's actually doing this professionally. Very excited to talk to Matt, one of our favorite students that we instructed, coached over the years. So it'll be a lot of fun to have Matt join us. He's doing it remotely, but we are looking forward to kicking off Bulldog Hour Season 11 with Wilson alum Matt Ginter. So that'll be next Sunday, February 23rd at 6:30. Justin and I will be back for the next episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, episode 413, on, I believe it's Sunday, March 2nd. And that one we will be joined, as we were supposed to be tonight, but things got changed, by my daughter Natalie for a little football trivia, Justin. So better start. You got 2 weeks. Better start cramming now.
Who was Super Bowl 59 MVP? Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's in the book. It's scripted, so
Yes,
they
exactly.
printed it early, you know. All right.
If not, that's going to be my answer to every question I don't know.
Who are the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles?
It will not take long till Natalie is annoyed with that.
I can just look at see her.
Right, the first time she'll give me that confused look because she'll think I honestly just does he really think that's it? And then quickly realize, oh, he's doing this on purpose.
That won't get old. All right, thanks for listening to this episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. See you again in a couple weeks.
Go Birds.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop. You can watch each weekly episode live on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. You can also rate and review us on many of these platforms as well. We'd love to hear from you. Send your emails to the Mays Sandwich Shop inbox at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is a part of the JMNJR Radio Network, home to other productions such as the Bulldog Hour, Tangents with Friends, and Nat Chats with Dad. Until next time.